Welcome back to the Straight Facts YouTube channel. This offseason has been pretty crazy, and one of the biggest deals was Chris Paul signing a 4-year, $120 million contract with the Phoenix Suns, making him the third player in NBA history to sign a deal worth more than $25 million a year past the age of 35. So the Suns, obviously runners up, are essentially bringing back the same exact team. They added Landry Shamet and JaVale McGee. My question is, and I'll ask you first, Jake, was paying Chris Paul worth it for the Suns?
Well, worth it is somewhat subjective in terms of what you're looking to get out of it. Obviously, championship is what they were incredibly close to taking home. Painfully saw that slip away. The question then becomes, was that a top out type moment? Was that the highest that the Suns trajectory with this build? Because as we'll talk about, it's pretty much the same exact team aside from some very minute pieces. Can that build be any better of a team? And I think the answer is yes, but only marginally. And granted, marginally was the difference between winning and not winning. But I'll be very curious to see if a guy like Chris Paul, the leader that he is, elevates the games of Mikal Bridges over the offseason. Mr. Target, Acme, what were we calling him? DeAndre Ayton, no bag.
Acme
Mr.
Ayton.
No bag Ayton.
Acme Ayton.
Acme Ayton. Mr. Cam Johnson, like all these guys who are young could definitely take a step forward. You know, the players they are now could be, you know, they could surpass that twofold, threefold next year. So that's where I think the value comes in for Chris Paul. But James, I'm more curious as the invested one here.
You said
what you think.
You said a very important statement. You said you're interested to see how like Chris Paul staying there develops the likes of Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and even Devin Booker and stuff like that. That's why I think it's great. Obviously, Chris Paul finding a home is good for him, which I think, you know, betters any team that he's on. But from the standpoint of keeping Chris Paul there, young guys can only benefit from playing more from Chris Paul. Like that is only a good thing, not a negative for all the young players that have the potential to be all-stars, potential to be superstars like Devin Booker on the Suns. Chris Paul helps that. And by the way, let's not forget that this man at 36 was scheduled to make over $40 million this season. Now he declines that option. You get him at a flat rate of, you know, 30 mil per year, 4-year, 120 million. You get him at a flat rate of 30 mil per year as the salary cap increases, as guys move contracts. You don't have to worry about when you're going to have to pay Chris Paul. It's all one flat deal. That's always just cemented there for you to move. So when it's Devin Booker's time to get his contract, when it's time to bring guys in, that's not something that's hanging over the Suns' head. It's a done deal, and you still get to keep Chris Paul, who, by the way, brought you to the finals. Like, let's not just say that lightly. I get that they didn't win, but let's not skip over the fact that in his first year there, he was able to bring that team to the finals who had seen dark days for, you know, almost a decade. So imagine what he can do if they continue to perfect that system. If he continues to perfect his chemistry with guys like D-Book and Kel and continue to bring them along. And I guarantee you the Suns are better off keeping Chris Paul and all the money and whatever it's attached to it than they are letting him go and watch them spiral back to mediocrity. Like, which one do you want, man?
And the other thing is, like, what's the alternative? You're going to spend that money, you know, 3/4 of that money on like Spencer Dinwiddie
TikTok,
or some shit?
You're not getting one of the big guys. Like, you know, one of them was not, and they didn't even try because they know. Like, credit to James Jones is that we know none of them is coming here. But wait, this guy just brought us to the championship. Like, none of those guys brought their teams to the championship. This guy brought us there. So keep him, restructure his deal. Let's figure out who else we need to bring in here to fill out a championship team. By the way, they addressed some things. Big man depth was one of the issues. You go and get a nice journeyman veteran backup center in JaVale McGee. We'll see what Landry Shamet does on the team. But you start to address some pieces. It's a positive. It's a positive for all guys involved. You could try to spend some negativity on it, rain on my parade, but it's a positive. Hey, yo, and for the first time in 3 years, I don't have to pack up and go to a new city with Chris Paul and root for some random team. I get some stability in my life, man. But go ahead, Kyle Chise.
I'll give you that. The only thing.
Go ahead, do it.
So you said that, like, all right, you get him cheaper because obviously the $40 million option. Well, you're still going to pay him $80 million more, and you've committed to him now $80 million more over the long run. The problem I have, and it was the first thing that Jake said, did they top out? Because if they did, and NBA Finals runner-up is a very hard thing to do again, and I know they're looking for the championship. But if they did, they just committed $30 million a year to a guy who's going to be 37 on this contract. He's going to be 38. He's going to be 39. This contract's going to end when he is 40 years old. And so the goal is with development, right? Chris Paul is going to be your fourth best player if everything works out. You want these guys to develop. Well, my fourth best player is 39 years old now, making $30 million a year. I don't think it makes sense.
Well,
I don't think it makes sense because No, you got. Well, I just truly believe that this was the best they could have done, and they have all this young talent. And I get it. Chris Paul was a big piece of how they got there, but I think this money could have been spent elsewhere. To be honest, because I don't agree that he's worth that much money over the next 4 years. I'm sorry. If you look at guys, and I know the last year is the year he'll be 40. The only guy who's ever had a productive, worth $30 million year when he was 40 in history was Michael Jordan.
Kyle, look at the way his contracts are going. $30 million in 4 years is not going to look. It's not going to look crazy. It's not going to look crazy. Like they're going up by the year.
Look, yeah, you know what else is going up by the year? His age. He's going to be 38, 39 in the middle of this.
And when he's 38, 39, guys will be signing mid-level guys, normal routine guys will be signing $30 million a year contracts. Like Duncan Robinson just signed for 90 M's.
That wasn't
people are getting this bag. And by the time he's 40, $30 million is not going to look crazy. Look at what Steph Curry just got his extension. He's going to be going to his 40, and he's making more than $30 million a year when he's 40.
Yeah. And you look back to just, 4 years ago or 3 years ago, or whenever the Rockets gave him that massive contract, everyone was like, that's the worst contract in basketball. You'll never be able to move that contract. And then he was in the middle of playoff runs throughout the entire contract, and it was traded twice. So, I kind of agree. I see both sides of it. I just think you have to, we came up 2 games short in the finals.
We got to run it back.
You
got to run it back.
I agree with that.
You got to run it back. And
I agree with that, but I maybe just take the option. I maybe would have just paid him the 40 for 1 year.
It wasn't their option, though. It wasn't their option. It wasn't their option.
I get that.
And the leverage they didn't have is Chris Paul dictated that market with them. He didn't dictate the market in the NBA, but he dictated the market when it came to his value with the Suns. I mean, that's.
Oh, he did dictate the market in the NBA. He's like he changed the whole salary cap rules for dudes above 35 years old.
Okay, all right. That was going to go to my next point. This is the NBA PA president. If anyone knows how to get the money, how to dictate, it's Chris Paul. Absolutely.
Yeah. What I'll close on for me is that you do bring him back. I agree with you guys there. You run it back. This is what you want for the next 2 years, but the back half of this deal could be very risky financially for them. And he's allowed to retire during the deal. They won't have to pay him, but it's hard to see him retiring to me when $30 million to play 1 more year is on the table. So I don't think it was a good deal, but maybe they didn't have a choice. Maybe they didn't have a choice.